as a person who has lots of experience in brand storytelling, brand strategy, what would you say a student should know about how does the brand make any decision before creating or starting to create any ideas?
I think for me, the way that I always think about it is, and this is not my idea, it is one that I have stolen off someone else, but
Solely adopted.
Yeah, yes. The three legs of the stool. So your sort of who, what, why, and your two legs of that stool, like who you're talking to and what you provide might be really similar to other brands, but the sort of how bit, like how you do that, is where you can really sort of differentiate yourself. So I think fully understanding that should give you your really strong brand proposition. Having really robust research, as you say, on your sort of mission, vision, values piece, knowing exactly who you are, what that means, because I think if you don't really believe in your brand yourself, how can you expect somebody else to do that? So
Definitely.
you need to be really embedded in those values, and they have to make sense. You see so many people, so many companies with sort of, optimistic and, hardworking, and it's like, these don't really mean things to somebody. So it's about building a connection that's strong enough that people will actually make a decision and spend money or time on your brand. You have to give them a reason to do that.
Definitely, totally agree with that. And I would love to dive in with you into the most practical part of our conversation today. Let's imagine this hypothetical situation. A student, let's say, wants to build a 30-day case study on brand. What would you advise to focus on? Would it be the brand itself? Would it be the opportunities, the problems? What would you advise to focus on first?
I would focus first on the problems. I think that is not only where you can have the most fun, but it then will show people that you can identify and solve an issue. Choosing a nice brand that, can sail along and is already kind of working might be nice, but it's not going to demonstrate learning. So I think that in the world of work with brands, with marketing, you're problem solving every day. So being able to see where those issues are, why isn't the brand working as it ought to, what isn't quite connecting, why are people choosing competitor over you, and identifying that, and then being able to say, well, if we changed this or we did it this way, we should be able to see a return.
Definitely, totally agree with that. And obviously, as we've talked about earlier already about the research and how crucial it is to do a proper, robust research on your audience, on competitors, maybe channels, what would you advise a person within the first week when he or she decided to build that 30-day plan or 30-day brand case study? What should they look at first? Is it the audience, the competitors, the channels you want to use?
I would look first at I think it's really knowing your audience, knowing who you're talking to. When I'm building a brand strategy, I kind of go first with general outlook, what's going on in the world, like is there anything like that might massively impact your campaign. And then I would probably, audience and competitors, I would probably audience. I think it's really important to know who you're talking to first. I think we can get a bit hung up on competitors. Yes, you need to know about them, and yes, it's good to know who's also working in your territory. It's good to kind of see what other people are doing that's interesting and that's fun. I think competitors can sometimes feel negative. It's not always. You can be really inspired by your competitors, but also we can get very hung up on our competitors, and we can get kind of obsessive about what somebody else is doing. And I think that can be really unhelpful. So I think focus on who you're talking to. Yeah. What do they want? What do they love? What is going to excite them? And then use that to inform your channels and your tactics, because channel first won't work because you don't know if that channel is where your audience actually are, if you don't know who they are.
So if you can imagine this, it's probably gonna look like a chain with the links, and each link is gonna be like starting with the audience, then we go to competitors. We don't sit here for too long because as you notice as well, some brands might get too focused on trying to make similar products or similar advertising that the competitor does, and then they sort of lose their own brand identity and they become a replica of that brand.
Yeah, and I think, obviously marketing is full of big brand fights like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and
Yeah.
Apple and Android and stuff, and that there's a lot to be said for that. They obviously all play into that quite a lot. And so if you're in that space, I think that's absolutely fine. But I think it's as long as you don't get too, just don't I think also one thing that I think is really nice to see is when you see somebody do something a little bit creative and a little bit risky and a little bit different. And I think if we get very obsessed with what our competitors are doing, we lose the bravery maybe to do the risky things because no one else is doing that, and is that going to be a bit too wild? Is that going to be a bit too silly? And I think that makes it a little bit more boring. I think it's more interesting if we take risks.
I would say so. That's definitely something I resonate with as well, because at the end of the day, you as a marketer, you have to be creative. You have to come up with something new, not like brand new or revolutionary, but at least something that can be improved further on or improve the existing idea as well that will help your brand to stand out in a field of different brands.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you as well is that it's really important to have a proper plan, a robust plan. After all those findings, how would you turn this into a simple plan that will increase chances of a person who've done this plan to get hired and become more credible as well? Because in that plan, he might have shown his creative thinking, strategic thinking. What would you say? How would you turn this finding into a simple plan?
I think that the planning bit, the theory bit, is something that if you ask 20 people to give you a marketing strategy on a brand, they're probably going to come up with fairly similar, it's a template. Not similar ideas necessarily, but in terms of the structure, in terms of the research and the sort of channel usage for, if you give them an audience, they're probably going to come up with quite similar sort of channels. So how do you stand out in terms of hiring? And I think that personality is really, that's what it comes down to. And you want to be working in a team where you fit, obviously. That's so much more fun than kind of feeling out of place all the time. And you can only do that by being yourself, which is the cheesiest thing to say.
But to be honest, this is so true. And sometimes people overestimate and think about, well, if I know this, I can do this, I'm good with these tools, and I'm just a great marketer overall.
Yes.
But if the same person does exactly the same thing as you, what are the ways to stand out then? Well, your personality.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is very, it's the brand of you. And I think that we shouldn't be too fearful of showing that in terms of an interview and being employable, because people want to work with people. We don't want to work with robots. We want to work with a fun team that are going to bring new and creative ideas to it. So I think, having an evidence strategy and proving that you can understand an issue and solve it will really, really help showcase your skill set. But then you need to bring your personality to the table. It's that's the third leg of the stool. How are you doing this that makes it different? And I know that it means that you maybe won't be everybody's cup of tea, but you'll find the people who were the right fit for you the whole time.
Amazing. These are the gems right here. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.